Hi there, everyone. Welcome to our Happy Cat, Happy Life presentation today. It looks like there's just a few of us here today, which is nice because that means that we'll have lots of time for questions and things like that. So just to go ahead and get started, my name is Robyn, and I'm a member of the training team here at the shelter. I have been here for almost a year now. I have a bachelor's degree in zoology, and I've been studying animal behavior and training in both wild and domesticated animals for the past 5 years now. So I'm really glad to be here today to talk a little bit about cats. And the other person pictured here is my supervisor, Donna. And they've taken some of the pictures and videos that you'll see throughout the presentation. And then the logos on the bottom of the screen here, just kind of some of the organizations that we're affiliated with as a team. So it's really great to be a part of a team that has had so much education and really knows a lot about animal behavior and ethical training. All right, so just a little bit of housekeeping. This class is being recorded. We're hopefully going to get a recording up on YouTube of this so that we can give that to you guys. But yeah, as far as Zoom goes, all you're really going to need to know is that you all are muted right now and your videos are off. So if you do have questions, I ask that you hold your questions until kind of the designated question slides, right? And then at that point, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. If you think you're going to forget your question by the time that comes around, that's all right. You can go ahead and put that question in the chat and I'll answer it from there. So whatever is easiest for you, you're welcome to do that. I also have everybody's videos off, and in just a minute here, I'm going to turn mine off too. And that just allows us to kind of focus in on the presentation a little bit more once we really get into it. So yeah, if you guys notice anything wrong with the presentation, you're not hearing or seeing something, let me know by sending me a message in the chat, and hopefully we can get that fixed. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop my video now that you've all seen me and we've done the introduction. All right, so here at the Santa Fe Animal Shelter, we are a life-saving community, which means that animals that come to us are given the best chance that they can to get adopted. We have a really great cat support section in our shelter, right? Lots of enrichment and behavior training for these cats. We are really, really lucky to have such a great cat care section. And we're really only able to have that and be that way because of the support of our community. So if you volunteer or donate, foster, adopt, come to these presentations, right, you're making this happen. So we really, really appreciate that. And also a huge thank you to Purina for making community classes like this possible through their generous financial support. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So these are some of the topics that we're going to be covering in today's presentation. So we're going to be talking about catification, what that is and how to do it, enrichment, and how to really help our cats have a great, satisfying life, and then also training. All right, so to start off, what is catification, right? So catification is the art of making changes and adjustments to your home that meet the needs of both you and your cat. So this quotation here is from Jackson Galaxy. He's a fairly well-known cat behaviorist. But what this basically is saying is that catification is a way to set up your living space so that it feels welcoming and fun for your cat. So what does that actually look like? All right, so this is just kind of an overview of how to get started with catification. So the first and probably most important thing, right, is setting up a base camp for your cat. And what that means is just a space that your cat knows is theirs, right? Cats are nice and territorial, right? They need to make places their own, and they like to scratch things and rub things and pass their smell around, right? So when you're setting up a base camp, you're wanting to have a slightly smaller space than the whole house, right? So something like a spare bedroom or an office, a den, anything like that. But you don't want it to be too small. So you don't want it to be like the size of a mudroom or a laundry room. That might be a little too small, and your cat might not have enough space in there. Um, the other really important thing about a base camp is that you have some porous items like pillows or blankets or other things like that that your cat can really soak their scent into. You can kind of think of this like how we set up our spaces with maybe pictures of our family, awards that we've won, right? All of these things kind of take up spaces, things that mean something to us. And for our cats, that's what their scent does, right? So giving them places to put that to decorate their space can make them feel really comfortable and at home. Another important thing to have in your base camp is a litter box, right? And the important thing to note about litter boxes, and something that I don't think is talked about very much, is that it's really ideal to have at least two litter boxes per cat that you have. So that would be ideally at least one in the base camp and then another in a different area of the house if you have the space for that. Um, and also within the base camp, we want to have, access to food and water. So a water bowl, you need to have, again, at least one in the base camp and then another outside for once they're kind of moving beyond the base camp. Um, so a water bowl and food bowls as well, it's really important that these are pleasant for your cat to eat out of, right? Our cats, they have those amazing whiskers, right, that kind of just go out horizontally from their faces, and they're really, really sensitive. And so when they go to put their head into a bowl, sometimes brushing the whiskers along the side of the bowl can be really uncomfortable for them. If you have a cat that eats all the food out of the middle but leaves kind of a ring around the outside, that might be part of the reason for that, is just their whiskers touching the side might make them feel a little bit uncomfortable. So finding something that's long and flat, right? A plate or a bowl that's specifically made for cats, like this one you can see on the screen, where it has those divots for where the whiskers can go out easily. Anything like that is going to make your cat feel more comfortable eating. And drinking as well, right? As much as possible, having something like a water fountain or, again, a flatter sort of bowl for the water for the same reason. And the base camp is really useful for one if you are just adopting a cat, right? And that's how you want to set that up for them. A base camp helps them get used to a new place before being able to kind of expand out into the rest of your house. Sometimes when you get a cat and they're introduced to the whole house all at once, it can be really overwhelming and they'll just go and hide. And so giving them a smaller space that's really set up specifically for them can be really, really beneficial. But even for cats that have been in your home for a long time, giving them a space that really feels like their space, and that they can go to, maybe if you have visitors over or they just want to be on their own for a little bit, they have a place to go. All right, so the next part of catification is making sure that our cats have vertical spaces to move around in. Cats love to climb, right? They like to be up high. That's definitely something that you see in a lot of different cat species out there, right? They want to be able to kind of survey their territory from a high spot. So that can be anything from, shelves, beds, chairs, any other type of furniture that they can climb on. And it's really great for us to set up kind of comfortable spaces, maybe like beds or boxes or hides, things like that in some of these higher areas. If you've noticed, your cat likes to hang out, kind of on chair level, making sure that they have some kind of place to relax that's at that height. Different cats are going to prefer different heights. So I kind of showed you an example of that in these pictures here, right? We have the cat on the chair that's kind of lower to the ground. We have one that's up on the top of a cat tower, right? So a little bit higher off the ground than the chair, maybe like mid-level. And then we've got that cat that's on top of the highest dead tree in the area, right? Looking out, and the sky is the background. So in our house cats, we have cats that might prefer to just be up as high as possible, whether that's on top of the refrigerator or, finding those high spots. And if you notice that your cat really likes those spots, giving them the option to be up there, and making it comfortable for them. Okay, so next we're going to talk about climbing and jumping, right? This is something that cats are built for. And it's really important that they have accessible spaces to climb and jump on that don't cause, destruction and havoc in your houses. So what you can see in this picture here is an example of a climbing wall for cats. So this has shelving and scratching posts and a lot of different ways for the cats to move around. And you can see there's different materials going around. There's a little ladder, but it also actually looks kind of cool, just from our kind of human aesthetic perspective, right? Adding the house plants in, making it look nice, right? This kind of sets it up so that it's tolerable for you and it's also fun for your cats. Now you don't have to have a wall, right? But things like cat towers and having other things that they can jump from and to, right? So maybe setting a cat tower next to a bookshelf that you have so that if they want to, they can jump up even higher from the top of the cat tower. If you have one of those ledges where you can put, decorations and things like that, giving your cat a way to get up there, right? That can be a lot of fun for them. So just setting it up so that it makes sense in your space and your cat is able to jump and play without knocking things down or getting into trouble, right? And giving your cat the opportunity to jump and to climb, can really help them feel happier and more satisfied, right? Plus, it also really encourages exercise, which is something that is definitely something to think about with our house cats, right? So setting them up to have access to different climbs and spaces to jump into. Okay, so cats really like to tuck themselves away into small spaces. So it's important that we give them opportunities to do that in spaces that are safe for them, right? We don't want them finding a hole in the wall and sticking themselves in there. We really want to give them places that are safe. So here you can see a cat in a tunnel, right? And that's just a fun cat toy that they can move through and around, right, and into. You can see that cat's just kind of lying there, hanging out in the cat tunnel. Then the one in the middle is on a really comfortable bed, right? But then the one on the right side is in just a plain old cardboard box, right? We all know how much our cats love boxes, so those can make really great hides and beds for them. So it's good to have these around the house, in your cat's base camp, but also in other places, to keep them feeling safe and secure, making sure they have places to go if they need to. All right. The next part of catification is toys, right? All cat houses should have toys available. So toys that can stimulate your cat in all kinds of different ways. So there's cat toys that they can grab and then kick, right? They're specifically designed to be that shape. And then there's toys that they can chase or bat at with their paws, toys they can really sink their teeth into, right? Those are all important to have around the house. So really making sure you've got a diverse array of different types of toys. It's also really important that cats get playtime several times per day, whether that's with you, with a sibling cat, or with an automated toy kind of on their own time. It's important to think about the fact that cats aren't endurance hunters, right? They're short distance sprinters and pouncers. So getting them to exert themselves in this way is a really great way to deplete their energy and also to make a space seem more fun and inviting for them. So we'll talk a little bit more about play, but first I just wanted to see if anyone has any questions about any of the catification elements that we just talked about. And if you do, you can unmute yourself or send it in the chat if that's more comfortable for you.
This is Deirdre. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Do you believe the lore that no cat toy should, or excuse me, no cat bowl should be made out of plastic because it gives them acne?
I have not heard that before. That doesn't mean that it's not true, but I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen that. They do make a lot of different materials of cat toys. So if that's something that you're worried about, you know, having something wrapped around it, maybe like fabric or putting it in a sock or something like that,
No,
that can
not,
also.
sorry, not toys, bowls. They're bowls
Oh, bowls. Oh, okay.
because they get blackheads on their chin.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. That is definitely something to think about. Kind of the cheaper plastic, right, might have effects like that. Ceramic generally, you know, is good if you don't have a very playful cat that's going to knock it down. Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I think, you know, to some extent, it probably depends on the cat, right? And how sensitive they are. I think it's a similar thing with the whiskers, right? They're just rubbing their mouth and their chin kind of against the bowl in a way that's uncomfortable for them and then causes maybe sores or acne. So yeah, if that's something that you're seeing in your cat, or if it's something that you've seen in others' cats and you want to avoid, yeah, really thinking about you know, different materials that you can use, metal plates, ceramic plates, even things that are kind of that hardier, thicker plastic. That might be better for your cat than sort of the cheaper alternatives that are out there. Does that answer your question, Deirdre?
Yeah, for a long time now, I've been using Pyrex because you know, I didn't know whether to believe it or not, but I just didn't want to take the risk.
Sure, sure. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Yeah, I'm not sure again how scientifically backed it is, but I definitely think, you know, there's always potential for that. So if you think that your cat is doing well with the Pyrex, no need to change that. Any other questions from anyone about catification or anything that goes along with that?
Just that along the way, if you'd like to point out when there are differences, if it's a kitten or if it's a cat, because I'm a foster mom for kittens, I usually have a lot of kittens in my home, or
Oh, sure.
cats. So
Yeah, perfect. That's great to be aware of. So I'll make sure to bring that up. Catification could almost be argued is even more important for kittens, right? They're sort of just little bundles of chaos, and so giving them the opportunity to really express those natural behaviors, right, is going to be really, really important. And the play that we're going to talk about next is really also very crucial for kittens in particular, but for all cats as well. All right. Any other questions before we move on?
I have a question. This is Donna Carroll.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. My question is, I have two kittens,
Hmm.
fostered them, and then I adopted them. And I live in a one-bedroom apartment, so there's not a tremendous amount of space, you know, to do the multiple litter boxes and all that. But
Sure.
the one cat, Chloe, she jumps on the counters, and she's gotten Benji to jump on the counters. And I heard that putting aluminum foil on the kitchen counters is a deterrent. You know, I've sprayed them with water on occasion. How can I combat that behavior?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's something that we hear a lot about, right? Cats kind of go wherever they please a lot of the time. So yeah, that's a great question. We're going to talk a little bit about training later in the presentation, and that kind of falls under that umbrella. But something just about the spraying and the aluminum foil, have you found that to be helpful at all, or are they still kind of going up there?
Well, I haven't done the aluminum foil yet. I wanted to get
Okay.
your opinion. And the spraying, yeah, they don't like it. I don't like spraying them, but
Mhm.
when I tell them not to do it, they don't listen. So,
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. The thing, about the spray bottle, well, first that you don't like doing it, that's definitely a reason enough, I think, to not do it. But it can also not be very effective, right? They might get off the counter in the moment, but that doesn't necessarily stop them from getting back up on the counter later, especially for the more energetic kittens, right? So that's definitely something to think about. I think aluminum foil might deter them, and so that's something that you could try. But then also thinking about for your kittens in particular, right? They don't really know the rules of houses. And so, when we just tell them, no, don't do that, we're not really giving them an alternative, right? What do we want them to do, and how do we teach them to do that? And so that's kind of something that we'll talk about in the training section in a little bit more detail, and I can give you some tips and advice during that section.
okay.
All right, yeah, thank you for your question, Donna. That's a really good one.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions about catification before we move on? All right. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about enrichment. And enrichment activities are really just anything that encourages your cat to engage in natural cat behaviors. So, catification of a home involves having a really enriching environment for your cat, right? Providing everything that they need to get their basic needs met. Another really important concept to discuss when we are providing enrichment for our cats is this acronym here on the screen. So this is a cat's basic motor sequence, which just means that this is how feral cats and other cats sort of out and about, this is how they go about their day, right? They have this sequence multiple times throughout the day where they're eating and then sleeping and then starting it all over again. So being able to mimic this sequence of behaviors in our cat's daily life can do a lot to keep them satisfied and also, happy and enjoying their lives. So the best way to capture the feeling of the hunt, catch, kill part of this is to play with your cat using a toy that mimics a hunt. So thinking about, what prey species would look like, right? Quick movements followed by freezing, maybe darting behind furniture or other barriers and then coming back out again really quickly, jumping around or flying like birds, right? All of these different things, and really thinking about how you can incorporate that into your play sessions with your cats. So once you've gone through that hunt catch sequence with your cat a few times and your cat is getting more tired out, it's a great idea to then give them a meal afterwards to help them feel like they've had a successful hunt. And now they're getting to enjoy the spoils of that hunt, right? So then, following that up by giving them some space in a comfy area where they can groom themselves and then take a nap. So it's really important to mention here that feral cats are usually eating about 5 to 10 small meals per day. So it's really good to try to capture that with your cat by feeding them multiple meals throughout the day and engaging in this sort of play and then eat sequence multiple times through the day. So that's not always doable to the same extent, right? 5 or 10 times per day might be a little bit much on our end, but even just increasing the number of times that you're feeding your cat, and engaging in this sequence can really help them feel more satisfaction with both the play and also with the sequence that comes with that. So really paying attention to this and even watching for it in your cats, it can be really funny to just see how they really do go through this sequence, oftentimes after they eat, just settling into groom and sleep. And then timing this for yourselves as well, so that if you need to go to bed at 10 p.m., having a little play session and then giving them some food, and then they'll kind of take care of that grooming and then sleeping for themselves. Okay, so enrichment isn't all about just that motor sequence in hunting. There's a lot that a cat experiences in their daily life, right? And we want to make sure that our house cats that might have limited access to, the outdoors, are provided with fun and stimulating activities throughout the day. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of our cat's senses and explore the best way to engage our cats in using that sense. So we're going to start with their sense of hearing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a short clip for you here of music created by scientists specifically for cats. So this uses frequencies and sounds that cats find really interesting or calming. So go ahead and listen to this. I'll play this for you all now. All right, so that's it's pretty interesting, right? So you could hear some sounds like purring, some sort of higher pitched repeating notes that sound a little bit like birds, a sort of plaintive sounding that little descent that sounded like a kitten, right? So all of these sounds have been proven to kind of engage cats in more ways than our music might. So this is something that after the presentation, we'll be sending out an email that kind of goes over what we talked about, gives you resources, and in that email, I'll send you a link to the music for cats, so you can maybe play that for your cats, see how they react. Cats have a really incredibly sensitive hearing, right? So this is something that is important to be aware of kind of as we go throughout our day-to-day lives. Humans are very noisy, right? And so something that your cat might actually really like is something like turning off all of the electronic devices in the house so that the humming and the high-pitched noises that they're giving off stop, to give your cat a break from all that constant background noise. This can be a really interesting sort of calming change of pace for your cat. So there's a lot of different ways you can use sounds to enrich your cat's life, or using that lack of sound as well, and just having a quiet time for your cat. All right, so next we're going to talk about sight. So cats, they love to be able to watch things. We kind of talked about that, like from the high vantage points, right? They're really sensitive to movements. And so they might enjoy something like a window perch, right? Where they can see outside and watch birds and other movements outside, and things like trees moving in the wind, right? People walking by. They sell little attachments that you can put so that your cat has a ledge on the window if your window doesn't have one built in. But giving them access to some sort of visual stimuli, right, to make sure that they're getting to look at things. I also have a picture here of a little fake fish tank. They actually make these for people who have cats, right? This is something that your cats can watch the little fish move across it like real fish would. And so that gives your cat a chance to watch, again, movement, but this time inside the house. This is nice for those of you that don't want to take care of real fish. And these setups, can really keep them interested for quite a while. It's a good idea to watch your cat's initial observations of these different things. So, if they haven't had access to the window before, or if you're just introducing something like a fish tank or other interesting sight inside, we really want to make sure that they're not getting too frustrated, right? If they're seeing these movements and they want to go towards them, but they can't, that might end up being frustrating. So, if you notice that they're starting to get frustrated, you can try actually adding it into that motor sequence that we talked about, right? The hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep. So part of the hunt is watching movements, right? And seeing what your prey opportunities are. So if you see them, watching things, and then you follow that up with some nice play and then food, that can relieve some of that frustrated tension that maybe might have built up in your cat otherwise. So really keeping that in mind as you're introducing them to these different sites, we don't want them to be too frustrated. Something else you all might have heard of is Cat TV, and that's a channel that's specifically made for cats. So that's another one that you'll see things like birds and other animals moving around and different sounds and sights that can really entertain your cat. All right, so introducing your cats to novel scents and tastes, right? Things that they've never smelled or tasted before. You can try different cat-safe herbs like oregano or dill, and you can give your cat a chance to eat new foods like the unsalted sardines that you see here, or other types of fish or meat that they don't often get a chance to taste. You can even surprise them with these new foods by maybe leaving them out in other rooms while they're napping in a different place, or anything like that, just to make it an interesting sort of delivery for them as well. And just to kind of put it out there, cats are really extremely sensitive to a lot of different smells. So if you're thinking of using essential oils, it's actually best to avoid having those around your cats and find other ways to introduce scents and smells to them, because those can be really overwhelming and even sometimes toxic for cats. So definitely, double check that whatever you're giving to your cat is a safe food for your cat. It's also really important to avoid foods with high sodium or sugar content, right? We don't want them to have too much of that in their diet. So always looking at that, but definitely, introducing them to these new tastes and smells is a really beneficial thing for them. Even bringing, bits of grass or, sticks or dirt in from outside, right? So they can sniff that and smell it if they don't get access to the outdoors, right? All right. So touch. It's really important to make sure that our cats have plenty of different surfaces to scratch at and rub up against, right? We want to make sure that we're offering a lot of these that are appropriate for them to rub on and scratch, so that they have good alternatives to things like our furniture and our legs, and other things that we don't want them really attaching themselves to. So adding some variety into the types of scratching posts, right? Like you can see here in this picture, there's a carpeted scratching post. There's also one with a rope around it, right? There's flat scratching, like tablets almost. There's more rectangular ones, and there's all types of different materials. So having all of these around for your cats to use, seeing what they like and what they prefer, and really making sure that they're enjoying that. And touch isn't all about just scratching for cats. A lot of cats like to be pet. It's a great idea to let your cat rub themselves against your hand to kind of figure out where they like to be touched the best, and then pet them there, right? Some cats might prefer under the chin or on top of the head or behind the ears, or, they're all different. So just kind of extending your hand out without any intention to really move that around on your cat, and just let your cat move on your hand can go a long way in kind of giving you a good idea and how and where they like to be touched. You can also try using combs or other brushes to groom your cat, but definitely make sure to pair these with like tasty treats and take it really slowly to make sure that your cat is having a really good time with that. And introducing it really slowly, right? Some cats are not going to like it. So making sure that you're giving your cat a good experience with that. And then, it's also a fun idea to give them different types of surfaces to walk over and explore. So most of our cats are exposed to maybe carpet and tile, maybe hardwood, right? But different things like bubble wrap or, other things like that that they might find interesting to kind of play with or walk over. It's important not to leave those unattended with your cat, right? But definitely encouraging them to interact with the surfaces in new ways by, again, maybe pairing it with food or treats or fun toys, other things that your cats really love. Another part of enrichment is engaging your cat's brain, right? That is just as important as engaging your cat in physical exercise in order to help them feel satisfied and also to drain their energy. So encouraging your cat to solve problems by feeding your cats in puzzle feeders, like the one that you see pictured here. You can also kind of create do-it-yourself puzzles using things like paper towel rolls or cardboard boxes, ice cube trays, other common household items, right? And just scattering treats through those, folding up the edges, right? So that they have to figure out how to get in, and really making it, a real puzzle for them. They have to figure out how to access that food. That can be a lot of fun for them. And I'll send you a little bit more information on do-it-yourself puzzles in the follow-up email that we'll send after this presentation as well. All right, does anyone have any questions about the different types of enrichment we talked about? I know that was a lot, so definitely feel free to ask any questions you might have had during those slides. All right. Okay, so when we are thinking about how to keep cats happy, it's really important to think about the cat hierarchy of needs. This might look familiar to you all as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that is usually applied to humans, but cats have this too. So at the bottom, we have the physiological needs, things like sleep and food and water and shelter, right? And then we have safety needs. So security, trust in their environment, territory. That's really important to a cat to feel safe. And then social belonging. So that's making sure that our cats have good, positive relationships with the people and the animals around them, right? So a cat that doesn't like your dog is going to be more stressed out than a cat that tolerates the dog around and or likes having them around, right? Same with people. So really making sure that our cats feel safe and like they belong in the kind of social structure of the house. Now, esteem for cats just looks like having confidence in the world around them. So cats are learning all the time, both good and bad. So teaching them with reward-based training, right? Giving them treats or play and toys and things that they love. Using those things to introduce them to new situations, to teach them to tolerate novelty, and to feel like they're in control of the situations around them, right? Cats really, really like to be in control of things. And so teaching them what that looks like and how to influence the environment around them, right? And then also how to feel safe in uncertain situations is going to go a long way in leading to confidence and satisfaction over time. So you can think of things like, a cat carrier or a vet visit, right? Things where they might feel really, really unsure. Having some amount of control in those situations, or reassurance that things are going to be okay by using that sort of reward-based training for them can go a really long way. And then self-actualization looks like enrichment and training and engaging their brain and helping them feel as much like a cat as they can. So this is something to think about when you are looking into all of the different things that we've already talked about, and then also in training. So training with cats is a really fun way to get them solving problems and engaging with you to strengthen that social bond. It's also a really good way to teach our cats what they're supposed to do in different situations, especially for kittens, like what Donna mentioned, right? It's really important that we're teaching them what the appropriate things to do really are, because they don't know. And so what we do is we always use reward-based training. This is also called clicker training, science-based training. You might have heard about this mostly with dogs, but this is something that also works to teach cats, because it's actually the most humane and then also the most effective way to teach your cat new behaviors, and also to modify those unwanted behaviors like jumping up on the counter. So what the clicker does is it marks the moment that your cats do exactly what you want, and then you follow it up with a treat. So treats can be all kinds of different things, but something that might work for your cat is just their kibble, right? If you have a really food motivated cat, your cat loves food, just using their dry food can be a great and easy treat. Things like canned chicken or fish, cats really, really love that. And then there's something called lick and lap, which you can see in the picture here. It's a little pink tube. Kittens especially really seem to love this, but it's a great way to reward any cat. And then also baby food. So for all of these softer foods, having some kind of delivery thing like a popsicle stick or a spoon, that can go a long way in keeping your hands clean, and still making it a positive experience for both of you. All right, so when do we really use these rewards? We don't want to bribe our cats into doing things, right? Because that just teaches them to follow after food, not to actually make the choice to do the things that you're wanting them to do. So only after your cat has done the behavior that you're asking for, do you want to give them a treat, right? So we want to think of it kind of as paying them for a job well done instead of bribing them into doing it. So if you are looking for your cat to maybe spend more time settled in their bed, you can give them a food reward every time they lie down in that bed. And that will make them more likely to offer that behavior later, and really lets them know that that's the right thing. That's the most rewarding thing you can do in this situation. And something that I wanted to bring up for Donna with the kittens who are going up on the counter, right? Thinking about how is it set up, right, so that they can, one, get up onto the counter, and then two, when are they going in there, right? What are they getting out of it? How are they rewarded for it? Is it just the access to a new space? Is there food out on the counter, right? Really looking at what is it about that that's really rewarding to them. And then thinking about, what do we want them to do instead? Well, maybe, every time you go into the kitchen, they come with you and hop up right on that counter, right? Well, thinking about, okay, so now every time I go into the kitchen, they just think that's the thing to do. So instead, teaching them that maybe when you go into the kitchen, they can go to a bed, or they can play with a certain toy on the ground, right? Or they get a really nice play session right before you're thinking like, okay, I have to go, cook their food. And then you can kind of put them in a different space. So you're thinking of it from a couple of different directions. One being management. How can we prevent them from doing it in the first place? And then the other being training. What do we teach them to do instead? Maybe we want them to sit. Maybe we want them to lie down. Maybe if they like being up high, we can give them a cat tower right next to the kitchen, right? So that they can watch what you're doing, but they stay where they're supposed to. And something that can really help with teaching your cat how to do this and how to stay in places or go places is targeting. And so this video will show you a little bit about targeting, but what a target is just a small stick. Here you can see it's like a very tiny little ball on the end of a stick. You can make your target anything you want. You can even use your hand or your finger if you want. But training them to touch their nose to a target can eventually get them to do a lot of different things. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video for everyone. And then afterwards, we can kind of talk about it and I'll answer more questions about the training. So this is just kind of going over the uses of targeting, right? Moving on to and off of things, exercising our cats, things like that. And this is the very beginning of the clicker training process, just pairing the sound of the click with the presentation of the food. That just teaches our cats what the click really means.
Good girl, Kate.
And then once you've done that a few times, so they're starting to understand the concept of the click, then you can start introducing the target. Luckily for us, cats really like to investigate things with their nose. And so that's something that they might just be inclined to do. You can also try, rubbing your tuna covered fingers on the top of the target stick, and that might make them more inclined to go towards it as well.
Good girl.
So you can see that cat was already starting to pick it up pretty quickly. Cats are very smart, and this type of training is a lot of fun for them because they learn very quickly. I know how to push the treat button, and I'm going to do it. And so you can work with that sort of motivation in your cat to motivate them to do the things that you also would like them to do, like maybe sitting in place instead of jumping up on the counter. It also gives you a really easy way to get them off the counter if they do get up there, right? They'll know then that something better is coming down on the floor because that's where they get the food from the clicker training, right? So training in this way is really, really powerful. If this type of training is something that you are interested in learning, we do have a couple of workshops coming up in March that will talk about teaching that basic clicker training to your cat. So I highly encourage you to sign up for that and get your cat started with clicker training. And that's something that, again, I'll link to in the follow-up email. So I know that, we talked a little bit about kind of what the training looks like, but I want to open it up to questions here because I know that, there's a lot of questions that people have about training cats. It doesn't seem nearly as common as something like training a dog. So definitely feel free to ask any questions you might have about this. All right. Well, Donna, did what we talked about with the counter surfing, did that make sense? Did you have any more questions about kind of what that will look like with your kittens?
Yeah, that made sense. And I will probably take the clicker training class in March to utilize that to get them off the counters. But I think for me, I have They come on the counters to go and look at the water coming out of the faucet.
Sure, sure.
Do that in the bathroom and the kitchen, but I have a table on the other side of the counter, so my cat goes up her scratching post, jumps on the table, and then jumps on the counter. So I think if I move that table to another place, it won't be as accessible for them.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great way to think about kind of the management aspect of it, right? Where you're setting up the environment so that it's just harder for them to do the behavior that you don't want to see. And if they're really into, like streams of water and things like that, definitely recommend getting one of those cat fountains. They sell them in stores, but those can be a lot of fun, especially for kittens. They like to kind of bat at the water and all of that. So that's something to think about as well. Yeah, and the training is a great option. So I definitely look forward to seeing you at that workshop in March.
Oh, well, yeah, thank you. And I bought them one of those water fountains and they seem to like it. So, and I think they drink more water because they have the fountain. So
Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, thanks for that advice.
Yeah. Any other questions that people had about the training or anything else? Oh, and Jeannie, I just saw your question come into chat about getting a video of this. Yeah, we'll be putting up a video of this onto YouTube, hopefully probably within the next week. But as soon as that becomes available, I'll provide you all with a link to our playlist of all of the different community connection events. And so you're welcome to check that to see when we post it. And I'll send out an email that links to that as well after this class. All right, any other questions about anything that we talked about today? So catification or enrichment, training, any of that?
I have one question. How do you feel about catnip and how often should they get catnip?
Yeah, that's a good question. So especially for kittens, well, one, catnip might not be as effective with kittens, but then you can also see it kind of go the other way where it's extremely effective with kittens. And so very occasionally with catnip for kittens, if at all. Once you have older cats, right, the catnip can be more exciting and interesting. Again, that'll depend on the individual cat. So if you notice that your cat gets really crazy with it, that might not be something that you want to be doing very often or at all, depending on how how upset they might seem afterwards. So it's really something to kind of judge based on your individual cat's reaction. If they kind of like it and it's a fun play thing for them, adding it in as part of that sequence that we talked about, right? After a good play session, now they get to kind of roll around with the catnip. That can be fun for them too. But yeah, just really keeping an eye on your cat's behavior around catnip and not necessarily leaving them alone with it, just to make sure that they're not getting overly worked up. And if they are, taking it away, distracting with some other play or something else to do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about anything we talked about today? Okay. All right, so if you have any very specific behavior challenges with your cat or any other cat-related questions, you can reach out to our behavior help desk at the email or the phone number written here on the screen. And definitely also keep an eye out for that follow-up email that we'll be sending for more cat resources. All right, well, another big thank you to Purina for making this community connection event possible. And thank you all so much for coming to this talk. We really appreciate your support. And if you learned even one thing from this presentation that you found useful, please consider donating so that we can continue to provide these services free of charge to the community. I really appreciate your time here, and I hope you got a lot of good information. So thank you all for supporting the Santa Fe Animal Shelter, and keep an eye out for that follow-up email. Bye, everyone.